The courtroom felt like a freezer as Claire sat quietly, her hands shaking while she watched Mark sign the divorce papers with slow, arrogant strokes. He wasn't just signing, he was performing. Even with only the judge, the lawyers, and Claire in the room, he behaved as if the entire world was watching. When he looked up, he flashed that familiar smile, the one that always said, "I'm winning and you know it." His suit was perfect, his watch expensive, and his posture dripping with confidence. "You understand what you're signing away, Mr. Harris?" the judge asked. Mark nodded dramatically. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm dividing my assets fairly with someone who contributed very little." Claire felt the sting, but she kept her eyes steady, knowing that this moment was only the beginning of the truth. Before the judge could move forward, Claire closed her eyes for a moment, letting her mind drift back to where everything started. She had been 23 when she met Mark, young, hungry, and full of dreams. At that time, she worked as a junior analyst in Houston, barely earning enough to save, but passionate about building something of her own. Mark, 8 years older, walked into her life like a movie character. His real estate company was thriving, his clothes always tailored, and his confidence overwhelming. "You're different," he had told her one night after a business dinner. "You actually listen." She mistook his attention for affection. She mistook his arrogance for maturity. Looking back now, she understood that she had fallen in love with an illusion, not the man standing in front of her. Their wedding came 2 years later, a glamorous event filled with flowers, champagne, and people she barely knew. Everyone said they looked perfect together, Houston's golden couple. But the magic dimmed quickly. After the honeymoon, something in Mark shifted. "Where are you going?" he would ask whenever she left the house. His tone wasn't concern, it was control. When she earned her first promotion, he laughed across the dinner table. "A promotion? Claire, you're in a man's field. Don't burn yourself out trying to impress people." The words cut deep, but she swallowed them. She wanted to believe the man she married still existed. She wanted to keep the peace. But every day, the house felt smaller, and Mark's shadow felt larger. Claire pushed forward anyway. She stayed late at work, studied harder, and proved herself again and again until she finally earned a leadership position. Instead of celebrating, Mark grew cold. He stopped inviting her to events. He stopped asking about her work. He stopped seeing her as a partner and started seeing her as competition. "You're neglecting your home," he accused one night. "You care more about clients than your own family." Claire wanted to scream that she was doing everything, working, cooking, raising their daughter, Hope, who was only 8 at the time. But she stayed quiet. Hope was the reason she didn't walk away. She knew Mark could use custody as a weapon, and that fear kept her playing the role of the agreeable wife even as her spirit was slowly suffocating. But Claire had a spark that Mark never expected. While he mocked her little consulting dream, she built her vision in silence. Late at night, after Hope fell asleep, Claire worked on business plans, studied trends, and reached out to clients privately. Her parents believed in her more than anyone, offering advice and a small investment that helped her take her first step. 5 years later, her company landed a major contract, one worth more than Mark earned in 2 years. When she told him, his face froze. "You think you're smarter than me now?" he snapped. Claire didn't answer. But inside, something clicked. His anger wasn't about her success. It was about losing control. And that moment became the quiet beginning of her freedom. The emotional distance between Claire and Mark grew slowly at first, then sharply, like a crack spreading through glass. They stopped sleeping in the same room. They stopped sharing meals. They became two strangers passing in a hallway built from tension and silence. Mark's bitterness sharpened every time Claire achieved something. "Your clients aren't real players," he muttered whenever she mentioned work. "You're lucky, not talented." Claire didn't argue, she didn't need to. The numbers, the growth, and the reputation she was building spoke louder than any argument. And with every quiet success, she felt a strength Mark could no longer control. By the time Claire turned 30, she knew staying with Mark meant letting her dreams die. She also knew leaving meant risking a custody battle. Mark made that clear whenever he felt threatened. "If you walk away," he warned one night, "I'll make sure you never see Hope." Claire froze. She'd never seen him look so serious, so cold. It wasn't love, it was possession. She didn't sleep that night. But by morning, her fear had turned into resolve. She wasn't going to raise her daughter in a house where ambition was treated like betrayal. She made a decision that would change everything. She filed for divorce. Mark didn't take the divorce seriously at first. When the papers arrived, he laughed, tossing them onto the coffee table like junk mail. "You're emotional," he said. "You'll come to your senses." But Claire was already past that point. She hired Linda Moore, a sharp family lawyer known for dismantling men like Mark. During their first meeting, Claire laid everything on the table: the control, the insults, the threats. Linda listened quietly, then leaned forward. "We're not just winning this divorce," she said firmly. "You're keeping your daughter, your business, and every asset you built." For the first time in years, Claire felt protected. The financial disclosure process uncovered exactly what Linda expected: lies. Mark underreported his assets, hid income, and minimized the value of his real estate properties. He claimed he was barely surviving. Claire knew the truth. She'd lived with his luxury lifestyle for years. Linda brought in forensic accountants who traced every dollar Mark tried to hide. Emails, shell accounts, properties listed under other names, everything surfaced. "He thinks he's clever," Linda said one afternoon, sliding a stack of evidence across the desk. "But he's predictable. And predictable men are easy to defeat." Claire felt the first real spark of vindication. While Mark spiraled under pressure, Claire's company soared. She expanded her team, signed new contracts, and opened a second office. Her reputation grew so rapidly that people started calling her the quiet storm of Houston. Mark noticed. And he hated it. He called late at night, shouting accusations. "You're turning people against me. You're ruining my name." Claire refused to engage. Meanwhile, Hope, now 16, saw everything with clear eyes. "Mom," she said one evening, "I'm proud of you." "Dad, he's just angry because you're strong." Claire hugged her daughter and knew she'd made the right choice. The stronger she became, the more Mark lost control of the story. The night before the final hearing, Mark called Claire with a tone she had never heard before. It wasn't anger, it was something darker. "Fine," he said quietly. "Tomorrow I'll sign everything. You can have Hope, the money, all of it. But you'll regret this, Claire. You'll spend your whole life alone." She held the phone tightly, staring at the wall. For the first time, she heard the truth behind his words. It wasn't love he felt. It was fear, fear of losing control. "Good night, Mark," she whispered and ended the call, knowing that the morning would reveal everything. Claire dressed carefully the next morning. She chose a navy suit that made her feel strong, one she'd bought with her own money, earned through her own late nights. When she reached the courthouse, cameras swarmed her. Reporters shouted her name, asking questions she didn't answer. Inside the courtroom, Mark stood tall in a fitted suit, posing like a wounded king. He smirked when he saw her, as if he still believed he held the upper hand. But Claire walked past him with steady steps. She wasn't the same woman he used to intimidate. Not anymore. Mark's lawyer began with a polished speech about Mark's sacrifices and contributions. He painted Mark as a devoted husband who built a stable life while Claire dabbled in small consulting work. Claire sat silently, watching the performance. Then came the moment everyone waited for, the financial disclosures. The judge asked Mark, "Are the numbers you submitted accurate?" Mark lifted his chin. "Yes, Your Honor. I barely have enough to support myself." His confidence was stunning. His lie was bold. And that boldness would be the thing that destroyed him. Then the judge turned to Claire. "Mrs. Harris, are your disclosures accurate?" Claire breathed deeply. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge picked up a thick document and began reading. According to the submitted records, Harris Consulting Group holds an estimated value of $860 million. Mrs. Harris's personal investments and assets bring her net worth to $2,750 million. The courtroom froze. Mark's face drained of all color. His lawyer dropped his pen. Claire didn't move. She just watched the truth finally speak louder than any insult Mark had ever thrown at her. The judge's tone grew sharper as she faced Mark. "Mr. Harris, it appears your financial disclosures were significantly inaccurate." Mark stumbled over his words. I didn't know her company was worth that much." The judge raised an eyebrow. Are you stating you were unaware of your wife's billion-dollar corporation? His silence said everything. Linda stood tall. Your Honor, we have evidence of hidden accounts, concealed properties, and deliberate misrepresentation on Mr. Harris's side. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. For the first time in years, Mark looked genuinely afraid. A recess was called, and mediation began. Mark sat across from Claire, pale and shaking. His new lawyer whispered urgently, "We need to settle. Her evidence is airtight. If we push this, you're facing perjury charges." Mark glared at Claire. "You planned this," he hissed. "All these years, you planned to humiliate me." Claire's voice was calm. "No, Mark. I planned to survive." Linda placed the settlement documents on the table. "Take it or fight it. If you fight, we prosecute. Your choice." Mark stared at the papers with trembling hands, realizing he had lost everything he tried to control. To everyone's surprise, Claire didn't take him for everything he had. She didn't want years of battles. She didn't want revenge. She wanted peace. So she offered him a fair settlement, far more than he deserved, but enough to end the war. Mark hesitated, then signed. His voice cracked. "You ruined me." Claire shook her head. "No, Mark. You ruined yourself. I just stopped carrying the weight." He looked at her with hollow eyes, seeing clearly for the first time that the woman he tried to break had become someone he could never overpower again. The divorce made headlines across Houston. Businesswoman emerges billionaire after husband's fraud exposed. Quiet consultant reveals multi-billion empire. Suddenly, the world wanted Claire's story. But she felt no excitement, just relief. Hope hugged her the night the news broke. "Mom, I knew you were strong," she whispered. "But I didn't know you were this strong." Claire smiled, holding her daughter close. "Sometimes strength grows in silence," she said softly. And in that moment, she felt the first real breath of freedom she had taken in years. But peace lasted only a short while. Months after the divorce, Claire received a letter from a large development firm called Harper & Miles Enterprises. They were launching an investigation connected to Mark's real estate dealings. The letter stated that Claire might be contacted for information because she was married to Mark during certain transactions. Her heart pounded. "No. I had nothing to do with his business," she whispered. She called Linda immediately. Linda listened, then said, "Don't panic. This is about him, not you. But we need to cooperate and prove your innocence clearly." The past wasn't done with them yet. Federal investigators arrived weeks later. They weren't accusing Claire, they needed her help. They explained that Mark hadn't just lied in court. He had been involved in a deeper scheme, using real estate deals to launder money. "We believe he used your company's legitimacy to make his operations look clean," one agent said. Claire felt sick. "He used me, without me even knowing." The agent nodded. "And that's why you're here as a witness, not a suspect." As they reviewed her files, Claire realized something painful and freeing at the same time. She had escaped Mark just in time. The life she built was safe because she built it completely alone. The investigation grew deeper over the next few months. Agents sat in Claire's conference room for hours, reviewing files, comparing dates, and tracing connections she never knew existed. One agent named Rivera, serious but kind, told her, "You were living next to a storm you never saw coming." Claire nodded slowly. "I was too busy building my company to see what he was doing." Rivera studied her. "Good thing you built it far away from him. Otherwise, you'd be in danger right now." Claire swallowed hard. She finally understood. Her independence had saved her life more than once. As evidence piled up, the truth about Mark unraveled like a broken thread. He wasn't only hiding assets. He wasn't only lying to the court. He had been secretly moving money for dangerous people, criminal organizations that used real estate as a smokescreen. One afternoon, Linda met her in the office. "Claire, there's something you need to know," she said. "Mark wasn't acting alone. This is bigger than him." Claire leaned back, stunned. "So all these years, I slept beside a man who lived a double life." Linda nodded. "And you never saw it, because you were never part of that world." The day Mark was arrested, Claire was in her office preparing for a presentation. Hope rushed in, breathless. "Mom, turn on the news." Claire grabbed the remote, and there it was. Mark in handcuffs, being led out of his house while reporters shouted questions. His face carried a mix of rage and humiliation. Claire stood still, watching the man she once loved become a headline. Hope slipped her hand into her mother's. "Are you okay?" she asked. Claire exhaled slowly. "Yes," she said. "For the first time. I think I really am." The past was finally collapsing behind her. Mark's trial dragged on for 2 long years. Claire was called to testify twice. Sitting across from him, she saw a man who no longer carried arrogance, just exhaustion. When the prosecutor asked, "Mrs. Harris, did you participate in any of your ex-husband's schemes?" Claire answered firmly, "No. I built my company alone." Mark looked down at the table, unable to meet her eyes. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on 18 counts, Claire watched him close his eyes as if his world had finally shattered. She felt no joy, no victory. Only closure. Life moved forward quickly after the conviction. Claire received invitations from media outlets, business conferences, and women's leadership groups. Everyone wanted to hear the story of the silent billionaire. But Claire didn't share everything. She shared only what mattered: the journey, the hard nights, the quiet fight to build something on her own. One evening, she found Hope sitting in her office chair, reading articles about her. "Mom, you inspire people," Hope said softly. "You inspired me." Claire felt her heart swell. Her daughter wasn't just watching, she was learning. Learning strength. Learning freedom. Hope joined the company after college, bringing fresh energy and ideas. Working together felt natural, almost healing. Claire taught her strategy, Hope taught her innovation. One afternoon, Hope said, "Mom, you know what I realized? Dad tried to make you small because he was scared. But you didn't stay small. You grew." Claire smiled gently. "People don't stay small unless they choose to," she replied. It was a quiet victory, one built over years of pain. And now, she could finally see the full circle. She didn't just save herself. She had saved her daughter's future. But despite her success, Claire knew she had a responsibility. Women everywhere were writing to her, sharing their stories of control, emotional abuse, fear, and lost dreams. Some had no money. Some had no support. Some had children depending on them. Claire read every message carefully. One night, she whispered to herself, "If I survived, they can survive too." That thought pushed her forward. She began speaking publicly, telling her story honestly, not to brag, but to guide. Her voice became a lifeline for women who needed to hear someone say, "You are enough." During her first major speech in Austin, Claire told the audience, "Strength doesn't look the same for everyone. My strength was building a company. Your strength might be leaving, asking for help, or simply believing you can stand on your own." Women in the crowd wiped tears as she spoke. After the event, a woman in her 60s approached her, trembling. "You saved me," the woman said. "After hearing your story, I finally left my husband after 35 years." Claire hugged her tightly, moved by the truth. Her pain had turned into someone else's freedom. Driving back to Houston that night, Claire reflected on everything. The courtroom. The lies. The empire she built. The daughter she protected. She realized something important. Her story wasn't about money at all. It was about reclaiming herself. It was about refusing to shrink. It was about believing she deserved better, even when no one said it out loud. She whispered, "Was it worth it?" And the answer washed over her like warm light: yes. Absolutely yes. She had found herself on the other side of the storm. A year later, Claire received an unexpected letter, Mark's handwriting, mailed from prison. She hesitated before opening it. Inside, he apologized. Not for the crimes, but for everything else, for the control, the insults, the jealousy. "I destroyed my own life trying to diminish yours," he wrote. Claire sat quietly after reading it. She didn't cry out of sadness or love. She cried because the truth had finally been spoken. She didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. That chapter was closed forever, and she was finally free to step fully into the life she had built. With Mark's chapter behind her, Claire shifted her focus to building something deeper: legacy. She wanted her company to stand for more than profit. She wanted it to stand for resilience. She held meetings with her team, telling them, "We're not just consulting. We're empowering." Hope watched her mother with awe. "You walk into a room like you were born to lead," she told her one evening. Claire smiled. "No one is born to lead, Hope. We grow into it. And sometimes, pain pushes us there." Claire later launched a women's mentorship program. She called it Rise Forward. It provided guidance, legal resources, financial workshops, and emotional support for women escaping controlling relationships. During the opening ceremony, a reporter asked her, "Why create this?" Claire answered softly, "Because I know what it feels like to lose yourself. And I know what it feels like to find yourself again." The room fell silent. Her truth carried weight. Rise Forward became one of the company's most meaningful achievements. Months passed, and Claire's life settled into peace, something she hadn't known in years. She and Hope spent weekends together, laughing more than they ever had. One Saturday, Hope asked, "Mom, do you ever miss who you used to be?" Claire shook her head gently. No. She was strong, but she was scared. "I'm still strong, but I'm not scared anymore." Hope looked at her mother with admiration. "I want to be like you." Claire hugged her. "Be like you, Hope. That's even better." One day, Claire sat in her office reading through messages from women across the country. One message stood out. It said, "Your story helped me leave my husband before I lost myself completely." Claire held the phone against her chest, tears filling her eyes. She whispered, This is the real reward. Not the money. Not the fame. But the lives touched. The women saved. Her pain had become someone else's flashlight in the dark. And that made every struggle worth enduring. During a small business summit, Claire was invited to give a keynote address. She stepped onto the stage, the lights warm on her face. She began, "My story isn't about revenge. It's about survival." The audience leaned in. She spoke about fear, courage, and finding strength in silence. She spoke about hope and the importance of showing children how to choose themselves. When she finished, the room rose to its feet in a standing ovation. Claire bowed her head, humbled. The applause wasn't for her wealth, it was for her truth. After the summit, Claire stepped outside into the evening air. The sky glowed orange as the sun dipped low. Hope walked beside her. "Mom," she said, "I think your superpower is turning pain into purpose." Claire laughed softly. "It took me a long time to learn that skill." Hope nodded. "But now other women can learn it from you." They walked toward the car, a quiet pride settling between them. Claire realized that her daughter had grown into a woman shaped by strength, not fear. A year later, Claire received news she hadn't expected. Rise Forward had helped over 5,000 women. Many of them had written letters of gratitude. One woman wrote, "I didn't think I mattered. Your story proved I do." Claire felt a warmth spread through her chest. She whispered, "Good. That's why I did all of this." She realized something profound. She had turned the darkest chapter of her life into a bridge for others. And by crossing that bridge, they were reclaiming their own stories too. One quiet evening, Claire found the old box of memories she'd kept tucked away, a small box containing photos from her wedding, letters from Mark, pieces of a life she no longer recognized. She sat on the floor and opened it slowly. For a moment, she felt the weight of old wounds. But instead of sadness, she felt gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered to the photos. "You taught me who I never want to be again." She closed the box and slipped it into a drawer. She didn't need it anymore. She had finally outgrown that version of herself. As Claire prepared for another major conference, Hope entered her room with a soft smile. "Mom, can I tell you something?" she asked. Claire nodded. Hope continued, "You didn't just escape a bad marriage, you broke a cycle. And because of that, I'll never settle for less than respect." Claire felt tears sting her eyes. She pulled Hope close. "That's all I ever wanted, baby. For you to know your worth." In that moment, Claire understood the real victory. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the headlines. It was the future she had repaired for her daughter. The night before her next keynote speech, Claire stood alone on her balcony overlooking the quiet city. She thought about everything: the courtroom, the humiliation, the empire she built, the women she helped, and the daughter who grew strong beside her. She whispered into the night, I didn't win because he lost. I won because I chose myself. With a deep breath, she stepped inside, ready for tomorrow. Ready to inspire again. Ready to keep building. Because her story, her real story, wasn't about Mark. It wasn't about revenge. It was about rebirth. And Claire knew that as long as she kept choosing her own worth, she would never be small again.